I have been a dedicated Spotify user for 6 years now. In 2019, I started a group account, getting 3 of my friends to pay me about $4 a month so we could all use premium for a cheaper price. Though if Spotify is wondering whether I actually did that, I did not. While initially I only used the free version of Spotify, I soon realized that the app was borderline unusable if you weren't paying for it. You'd think getting an ad shoved up your ass after every song would be bad enough, but on mobile, you can't play albums fully through, pick songs to play, where to play a song, skip more than 6 times, or even add songs to a playlist. It's safe to say that if you're looking for a replacement to the radio, you're going to have to shell over some money to the platform. If you're outside of the US, this price has even recently increased from 12 to 14 American dollars, though it's likely to affect US users soon. The price for US-based subscribers will not go up, for now at least. That likely won't last. The company raised the price by $1 in 2023, another $1 in 2024, and now costs $12. I've excitedly watched my Spotify Wrapped at the end of every year, which if I'm being honest, has been the hardest thing for me to come to terms with leaving behind. How will I go on without my pretty little yearly data collection music wrap-up? You've guessed correctly, I'm leaving Spotify. I've had multiple serious issues with the platform over the past few years. I've known that they, and streaming platforms in general, are not great for musicians, which I'll cover later, but beyond that, the app has consistently had me on the verge of deleting it. My first straw was probably when the app started turning into a wannabe video platform instead of a listening platform. Spotify doesn't just want to be a music platform, no. They want to be YouTube, TikTok, Audible, and Apple Podcast all in one. Except they don't excel at a single one of these features. Like they say, a jack of all trades is a master of none. Except for me. I'm actually very skilled at anything I put my mind to. One of the first things Spotify did in this push for videos was introduce clips for artists. This feature is automatically turned on for users until you manually turn it off in settings. Behind the album cover, a short clip will play on repeat if you have the player open. This was incredibly annoying to me, someone who uses streaming platforms to listen to music, not watch music videos. On the search tab on the app now, you can also see short form videos under the line, discover something new. You can vertically scroll through these to see short videos uploaded by artists while snippets of their songs play in the background. On playlists, you can now quickly scroll through the clips uploaded with the songs in order to quickly roll through different songs.
Clips are designed to put you and your music front and center, so they can be attached to your artist profile, to a song, to an album, or to an upcoming release. Clips are all about driving streams of your music, not likes. So in each of these surfaces, viewers will be able to quickly access your music after watching the video. Clips don't go away in 24 hours, and you don't have to be constantly creating new content in order to keep up and chase the latest trend. Clips bring video storytelling to more parts of Spotify, so that you can tell richer stories and drive more streams, so that you can communicate with your stans and your future fans on the platform where they're already listening to your music. It's an evergreen, always on home for videos that deserve deeper storytelling and longer shelf life, not just a quick viral loop.
As someone who also used Spotify for podcast, I was really annoyed when they started including the option for creators to upload videos with their podcast. For a while, actually, it was impossible to toggle the feature on and off in the podcast player, meaning I was forced to see the video instead of the podcast cover for literal months. On top of that, the video automatically showing up first made latency worse, as it would often struggle to load. If I wanted to watch a video, I'd just go to YouTube. But Spotify wouldn't want you to leave their app, now would they? Although Spotify's podcasts aren't the main topic for today's video, I just have to rant a bit about how poor the UI is for this feature. When looking for alternatives, I realized that I could just use Apple Podcasts for free since I have an iPhone. And I realized that it is actually fucking insane what I accepted from Spotify previously. Apple Podcasts lets you mark all episodes as played on a podcast. New episodes are automatically downloaded. You can write reviews on podcast. Your saved episodes are sorted by podcast. You can now set unique speeds for the playback of each of your podcast. And not only are there no video podcast, but there are also no closed captions that are impossible to turn off. And most importantly of all, there are no comment sections. I don't give a flying fuck if creators want to engage with their podcast fans on Spotify. I don't want to see comments on the podcast I'm listening to. It's a streaming platform, not a social network, right? I thought the added comment section to podcast was my last straw, but I kept on suckling from the teat of Spotify for much longer. The platform, in yet another move to diversify, even introduced audiobooks fairly recently for premium subscribers. Spotify said that audiobook rights holders are compensated based on which titles are listened to and how long they are listened to. The company would not give further comment on its compensation model. Given how poorly artists are paid on the platform, it's unlikely that authors are receiving huge payouts for their books. Besides, it makes no sense to use any paid audiobook service when better apps like Libby and Hoopla are free with a library card, especially when Spotify in particular only offers 15 hours of audiobook listening per month for premium users. That's not a lot in the land of audiobooks. If you go over, you'll have to purchase more time, which I'm sure will be delegated to whichever author of the book you listen to with that time, right? Even more with the family plan, only the account owner can use the sparse allotted 15 hours. Let's recall what Spotify did to the music industry. Under this new offering, Spotify premium users get 15 hours of audiobooks a month for no additional cost. The company is already wooing publishers and authors with promise of new readers, much as it promised the music industry with an expanded audience. Even assuming Spotify attracts some net new readers, those gains will be offset by another company, Invention. While Spotify struck different deals with book publishing houses, in general, authors will be paid in full only if users finish the book. If someone listens to only a portion of the book, the author gets paid only for the amount of time the person listened. Given that many books are sold but never finished, many authors are likely to make significantly less under this model. On top of all of that, the mobile and desktop apps haven't synced for me for well over a year. I've deleted the desktop version, logged out, gone offline, I've tried it all. But my liked songs, albums, podcasts, and so on never sync to my desktop app. A multi-billion-dollar company that I paid $12 a month to, and my account can't sync across multiple devices? I've been hard-pressed to find a replacement for this app. However, I realize that the issues I just listed may not even be considered issues for other users. While some are serious UI issues that should be fixed, there are surely people who like the audiobook or podcast commons feature that I consider a problem. For most people, these aren't reasons enough to quit the world's most popular music app. But don't be fooled. Spotify's issues go far beyond poor UI and shitty vertical content implementation. Today, I will be finally airing out my issues with Spotify and why I decided to make the difficult decision to switch platforms. Living without Spotify Wrapped won't be easy, but it'll be worth it in the end. I don't need a multi-billion-dollar company to tell me that I'm autistic. It goes without saying that music streaming completely changed the music industry, and not necessarily in a completely bad way. For music lovers, the concept of having almost every song ever made at your fingertips for a mere $10 to $20 monthly fee is incredible. Mostly gone would be the days where a fan would need to buy a musician's new album at the store for $10 or borrow it off of someone else. Now, music labels were already exploiting artists for decades. Pink Floyd's best album, Wish You Were Here, wouldn't exist if that wasn't the case in 1975. Turning music, a form of art, into an industry was the first sin. Streaming, however, has created an even better way to exploit artists. Liz Pelly writes in the introduction to her book, Mood Machine, The Rise of Spotify and the Cost of the Perfect Playlist. The now normalized model of an every song in the world subscription service is a functional impossibility without the participation of the major label oligopoly of Universal, Sony, and Warner though, who together control 70% of the music market. That put the majors in a position of power when they started negotiating their initial deals with Spotify, which was not the first streaming service they all licensed. And by that time, their standard streaming contracts have come to require their labels getting equity, advances, free advertising, and influence over how the platform evolved. At the time Spotify launched, the majors together owned a nearly 18% stake in the company. This is all to say, the very concept of music streaming was designed for the benefit of extremely popular major label music. Pelly was even recently interviewed by popular YouTube music reviewer Anthony Fantano. I'll link that down below. I'll be quoting her book a lot within this video, so I'd recommend you check it out if you want to know even more about Spotify. Like I said, artist exploitation was always a thing, but streaming worsened it, all while claiming to be a one-fix solution for the issues within the industry. Pelly writes, streaming claimed to solve piracy, but for many independent artists and listeners, the problems of the ultra-capitalist music business were never solved. The truth is that no technological intervention was ever going to easily solve such a complicated and ever-changing question. Not piracy, not downloads, not streaming. There are no one-click solutions, and perhaps what music could benefit from most would be a wholesale rejection of technological solutionism. On one hand, independent artists have a more accessible way to release music now. Most of my music exposure before streaming was through my brother's iPod, my mom's childhood music, or the radio. But through streaming, I've discovered alternative artists that I never would have before. However, I, and many others, believe that streaming as a whole has even further commodified the creation of art. It reduces entire records down to individual songs so you can pick and choose from to create the perfect mood playlist, and artists down to the amount of streams or monthly listeners they have. Artists now, more than ever, must sell merch and sell out venues since they can no longer rely on record sales. Even then, Pelly argues that switching to streaming may not be the greatest discovery tool on earth for independent artists. She quotes Ben Parrish, who has worked with multiple independent artists before. When you're interested in niche genres and music scenes and stuff that mostly appeals to weirdos and record collectors, even one person switching to streaming from buying a record more than cancels out however many people might algorithmically stream the song. She continues, the whole idea just seemed extremely short-sighted, and like it was giving the shaft to the majority of artists for the possibility possibility that a few might connect to millions. In her book, one of Pelly's main arguments against Spotify and streaming in general is how they've championed the lean back listener. She writes, beta users and industry executives reportedly love the app's instantaneous feel. What Spotify had really done was engineer a frictionless experience, the sense the music just materialized from thin air. But similar to other app-enabled magic tricks of recent history, such as overnight packages and instant food delivery, frictionless is always an illusion. In chapter 3, she cites a study that Spotify conducted in their early days. She says that the study revealed that people listen to music during key moments, like driving to work, cleaning, or working out. In this study, Spotify wanted to gauge the demand for each category of music. She writes, having done the study, they realized active listening was a smaller part of the experience. There were way more listening hours using music as a background experience. People who wanted to lean back and let Spotify choose things. I think that was a real breakthrough. They started to think about how to optimize for that experience, for a less engaged user, to make music consumption more seamless. This was the beginning of a strategic shift, and one that grew out of marketing conversations, not conversations on how to market music, but how to market Spotify. Pelly says that it's no surprise that a population paying so little conscious attention to music would also believe of it deserving so little financial remuneration. Listen, I can't say that word, give me a break, okay? She believes that this passive listening is a disservice to artists, listeners, and music as an art form. While soundtracking your life or passively listening to music isn't inherently evil, the focus on this kind of listening experience alone is what many music lovers, artists, critics, and listeners consider a major pitfall of streaming in general, but Spotify in particular. I'm not some kind of moralist. I mean, when I work throughout the day, I turn on the beginning of Slipknot's discography and just play through the whole thing until the day's over. Yes, heavy metal helps me focus, but this isn't my only form of listening. For many other Spotify users though, passive listening is the only way they engage with music. Pelly quotes a former Spotify employee in chapter 3. The vast majority of music listeners, they're not really interested in listening to music per se. They just need a soundtrack to a moment in their day. I think Daniel Ek was the first person to really exploit that. I honestly think that the core of the company's success was recognizing that they're not selling music, they're not providing music, they're filling people's times. Ek said at a meeting, Apple Music, Amazon, these aren't our competitors. Our only competitor is silence. I definitely think people are afraid of silence, and Spotify has capitalized on that really well. Through this listening experience, Pelly claims in chapter 5 that listeners were often not even aware of what song or artist they were hearing. The higher-ups had a light bulb moment. They knew that the vast majority of users were not coming to Spotify for specific artists or albums. They just needed something, anything to soundtrack their days. Daniel Ek, by business execs, has been championed as the savior of the music industry. Before Spotify, pirating was the popular way to listen to music. Ek has been famously quoted as saying he wanted to create something better than piracy. In essence, create an alternative that makes it so easy to consume music that people won't want to pirate anymore. In 2012, when Ek was quoted saying this, an independent artist wrote in his blog arguing that Spotify isn't actually much better than piracy. He says pirating would actually be more beneficial to him in the end, and that Spotify should not be advertising that their listeners generate revenue for artists. This could lead to someone choosing to listen to a song on Spotify instead of purchasing it on iTunes with the idea that they were supporting an artist either way. In reality, it takes nearly 300 Spotify streams for one member of an independent band to be able to buy a cup of coffee at a bodega, and probably many, many more times if an artist has a record label. The reality is that Spotify didn't sweep in to save the music industry, they swept in to capitalize off of artist exploitation. Even before streaming, artists of any kind have always struggled to make money. Most musicians are not Taylor Swift. Most actors are not Tom Cruise. Most of these creators are not trying to become millionaires. They just want to live off of their art. This was hard enough before, but it's become harder as streaming has become the dominant way to enjoy music, with streaming royalties being less than mere pennies. Even Taylor Swift didn't make as much on Spotify in 1 year as Daniel Ek made last year, selling $345 million worth of stock. Consequence Sound reported that an artist would need 115 billion streamed equivalents throughout a year, 15 billion more than Spotify's most streamed artist, Drake, has put up in his entire career in order to make $345 million. Ek isn't Spotify's most streamed artist, but based on the company's actions, he's the only number one that matters. Still, only a small percentage of people make enough money to live through Spotify. Spotify's site informs us that just 13,400 artists, 0.2%, generated $50,000 or above on the streaming platform last year. Of that group, 7,800 generated over $100,000. 1,820 generated over $500,000, and just 870 artists made above $1 million. Spotify pays based on recording and publishing royalties. It says on their website,
when an eligible song gets played on Spotify, the rights holders receive royalties for it, whether it's played by a premium or ad-supported customer. We calculate stream share by tallying the total number of streams in a given month and determining what proportion of those streams were people listening to music owned or controlled by a particular rights holder. Contrary to what you might have heard, Spotify does not pay artists royalties according
to a per play or per stream rate. The royalty payments that artists receive might vary according to differences in how their music is streamed, or the agreements they have with labels or distributors. Artists are still somewhat paid on the amount of streams they have though, which according to most sources is anywhere from 0.0003 to 0.0005 cents per stream. And this is before their labels take a cut. The actual payout is sent to rights holders first, not the artist. For reference, YouTubers are paid anywhere from $3 to $30 per 1,000 views. And by the way, I'm only using YouTube as a reference, not because it's the beacon of treating artists fairly. It's not, but because it's what I have the most personal experience with. To say that Spotify's payout is low would be an understatement. If an artist got paid 0.003 for $100,000 streams, they'd get paid $30. If a YouTuber who makes $3 per 1,000 views got 100,000 views on a video, they'd get paid $300. Of course, the formats are entirely different, but don't all creatives deserve to get paid a livable wage regardless? An alternate platform, Tidal, pays about 1 cent per stream. Spotify is the biggest music streaming app in the world, with 276 million premium users, meaning the company is making a couple billion every month on premium subscriptions alone. In 2020, the platform earned $10 trillion in revenue. Its valuation has continued to sharply rise, and so has the premium cost, but musicians' pay hasn't. In fact, Spotify even recently demonetized all songs on the platform under 1,000 streams. Not in total, but annually, meaning about 60% of the songs on the platform won't receive any payouts. The company claimed that the 60% of songs only represent 0.5% of all streams on the platform. Imagine if YouTube announced one day that every video on the platform with under 1,000 views wouldn't be monetized anymore. That's a huge portion of the platform's videos. While Spotify claims that these songs represent a barely marginal portion of all streams, this decision, in the end, only creates a smaller pot for bigger artists and record labels to receive more money. Artist Ali B. Reddy told the Irish Independent. Spotify arrived after a long period of people using pirate download sites like LimeWire and paying nothing for music. Music was at its most devalued at that stage and has been making a slow, hard return ever since. I definitely don't agree with any company benefiting off of the back of people on the ground floor. When the internet makes things so easily accessible to so many, I think it is more a case of adjusting to how to value art than one single company devaluing music. It's bigger than just Spotify, in my opinion. It's across a lot of different mediums. You might be thinking, well, I'll just stream my favorite artists a lot so they'll get more money. Right, well, Spotify doesn't work like that. Spotify essentially gathers all the money from premium subscriptions and ad revenue into a big pot and divides that based on who got the most streams. If I streamed Slipknot songs 1,000 times last month, it was most likely higher than that, I'm not directing my money towards their income at all, since my money is going into a collection of cash, meaning fucking Ed Sheeran is benefiting off of my subscription even though I don't listen to his shit music. Under the current pro rata model held true in Spotify and Apple, money from your dedicated fans goes into a giant pool that's paid out to artists based on their share of total streams. This mostly benefits mega stars. This causes smaller artists who might not have such a massive reach but have a dedicated loyal audience not getting much money because they share a smaller portion of the overall streams. It wouldn't be a foregone conclusion to assume that popular songs are getting shorter, since shorter songs are easier to stream over and over again. I mean, how many times in a row can I realistically listen to Shine On You Crazy Diamond parts 1 through 5? Again, the music is valued based on each individual song and how much it's replayed, rather than based on the entire work. Keeping the Pink Floyd examples going, The Wall is great when listened to as a full work, even better when paired with the movie. But I don't revisit half of the songs on the album separately. Does this make it less valuable? No. Consider it one of the most influential albums of all time. Pelly writes in Chapter 7 about the rise of TikTok as a way for musicians to market their music. The rise of short-form video as a vessel for music discovery has taken the logic of stream bait to a new extreme. It was no longer about grabbing the listener in the first 30 seconds, but the first 3 to 5 seconds. The chorus or some ultra-hooky bit needed to hook the app swiper immediately. Shortly after first joining the app, a video barged its way onto my For You page, wherein a self-appointed TikTok for Musicians expert claims that in order to go viral on the platform, a song needed not only an immediate hook, but re-engagement triggers every few seconds. Songwriting started to revolve around snippets. I'd say the same thing about Pink Floyd's Animals, or really any of their albums. In Chapter 8, Pelly included a quote from an ex-machine learner engineer at Spotify. He describes the way Spotify highlights time listened on the app as a myopic focus, putting it very well. Some of the records that I would consider really life-changing, really profound, are records that, in terms of listening time, they wouldn't even show up my top 100, partially because they're really challenging records. They're records that open me up to certain things, but they require a lot of investment. I'm not going to sit down and eat dinner to it. I need to be in the space where I can really devote myself. There's a lot of music that listeners find really important, but it's not what you want to listen to all day. It's like taking a 3-dimensional picture and flattening it to 2 dimensions. still has some relation to the actual object that they're trying to study, but it leaves out a fair amount. While streaming in general is its own issue for not only musicians, but for those in any creative field that now profits off of streaming, Spotify is a particularly heinous example. Of course, for all the reasons that I previously outlined, but the issues with Spotify go far beyond the surface. AI music has had a particularly interesting run on Spotify. Just this July, a band called the Velvet Sundown reached 1 million listeners in a very short amount of time after they released 2 albums. I just want to play the beginning of one of their songs for a moment for all of you. Don't worry, I can't get copyrighted. Now, to me, that sounds exactly like the beginning of a Led Zeppelin song, but I digress. The band describes itself as a synthetic music project guided by human creative decision. It's AI. That's all it is. The band isn't real. After listeners realized that the band was AI, the creators posted online, confirming that the group was an AI creation and was
not quite human, not quite machine, but living somewhere in between.
Many users have noticed how much AI music has proliferated Spotify-created playlists. Chill jazz playlists are now filled with tracks made by new artists who seemingly have no presence outside of Spotify. If you scroll through one of these playlists and click through the songs, you'll notice that most of them sound the same. It's jazz. I know it's hard to create background jazz that sounds new and innovative, but these songs sound the exact same. They start on nearly the same piano notes every time, have the same BPM, the same melody and chord progression. It's actually incredibly eerie. Spotify is essentially, allegedly, filling up their own playlist with their own AI ghost artists. Ted Goya wrote for his Substack, The Honest Brooker, on the problem of the same song being re-uploaded to Spotify with different artists and song titles. I found a jazz artist that I've never heard of before, who had received more Spotify plays than most tracks on Jon Batiste's Grammy-winning album of the year. One source claimed that about 20 people are behind over 500 artist names. Many of them appear to live in Sweden, which is, by complete coincidence, where Spotify has its headquarters. Spotify has even had AI music on the platform created in the name of dead artists. In one instance, an AI track was released on deceased country singer Blaze Foley's official Spotify page. The owner of the record label that manages Foley's music told 404 Media, "It's harmful to Blaze's standing that this happened. It's kind of surprising that Spotify doesn't have a security fix for this type of action. And I think the responsibility is all on Spotify. They could fix this problem. One of their talented software engineers could stop this fraudulent practice in his tracks, if they had the will to do so. And I think they should take that responsibility and do something quickly." His suggested fix is not allowing any track to appear on artist's official Spotify page without allowing the page owner to sign off on it first. AI musicians aren't even the first instance of this problem. They've only exacerbated an existing issue, the issue of Spotify's alleged ghost artists. Pelly discusses this in detail in her book, wherein ghost artists were allegedly hired by Spotify to fill up Spotify's playlist, creating content more than any real art while being told to make their songs even simpler. The first reports of ghost artists on the platform were real people creating music, but they were allegedly commissioned by Spotify to make music at a flat rate, rather than being paid the needlessly expensive and binding royalty payments that other record labels are paid. In about 2017, Spotify launched a program called the PFC, Perfect Fit Content. In order to reduce its royalty payments, the Swedish stock and background music companies Epidemic Sound and Firefly Entertainment, among others, were commissioned to bulk create thousands of stock music tracks. Pelly, along with other reports, have claimed that Spotify goes to great lengths to cover the identity of the artists whose songs are flooded onto popular Spotify manufactured playlists. The reason behind this alleged behavior is to flood the platform with Spotify-produced music that takes away streams from legitimate artists and fills Spotify's pockets even more. A Spotify spokesperson told The Times,
"Spotify prioritizes listener satisfaction, and our playlist editors' programming decisions focus on what music positively resonates with our users. Like all of the music on Spotify, the music is licensed by rights holders, and while the terms of each agreement vary, none of those agreements promise placement on any playlist. Spotify doesn't dictate how artists present their work, including whether they publish their songs with their real names, under a band name, or a pseudonym."
AI has made ghost artists even easier to create. Now, they don't even need to pay real people to make music. In fact, streaming has also created a new kind of fraud that is affecting musicians. Channel Venus Theory did a long expose on this recently, so I'll link that down below. Like we saw with dead country singer Blaze Foley, the ability for people to impersonate artists and upload music on their verified pages has become frighteningly easy in the streaming age. Not only that, but artists have also frequently experienced their music or artist pages being removed from Spotify due to accusations that they intentionally placed their music on playlists to garner bot streams. Now that's rich, coming from Spotify. In fact, this bot playlist issue seems to be this prevalent only on Spotify. The drummer for the Northern Irish rock band Final 13 told The Guardian,
"It's really hard for any artist to prove that they didn't manipulate streams, but it's even harder for Spotify to prove that they did. They take it down and that's it."
Unfortunately, systems elsewhere for taking down tracks often presume guilt, and the appeal system is so arduous that small acts, already struggling, just give up. Yet, even after all of this, I never cut the cord with Spotify. Maybe I should have after it took them over a decade to even begin to introduce hi-fi audio. Maybe I should have ended it when I noticed how bad the music recommendations had become, or how truly awful their shuffle feature was. I never did though. In reality, my final straw was some recent news about the CEO, Daniel Ek. About 2 months ago, Ek invested $600 million in a European AI military defense firm. Founded in 2021, Helsing sells software that uses artificial intelligence technology to analyze large amounts of sensor and weapon system data from the battlefield to inform military decisions in real time. Let me just say this. I don't agree with military spending, full stop. And I don't agree with using AI in any form for military weapons or operations. People are arguing all about this, saying that because a big consumer of Helsing is the Ukrainian military, then that means it's all peachy. Ukraine and Europe are the good guys, so AI military tech to help fight Russia is okay. At the end of the day, I have had enough with Mr. Ick and his disgusting greed. Following this, multiple indie artists even completely removed their entire music catalog from Spotify. A similar thing happened when Spotify announced their exclusive deal with Mr. Ivermectin Rogan. Yet, for many artists, the idea of removing their music from Spotify is absurd. The platform is so huge, and it does boost discoverability. Despite Spotify's poor pay, only having their music available on smaller platforms would still be a major blow to their income. Is there a point to switching platforms then? I can't answer that question for artists, but for consumers, Liz Pelly told The Times she is not really interested in making judgment calls over individuals' consumer choices, instead pointing to bigger questions of thinking about how we value music in society. She actually wrote in the conclusion to her book something similar. Everyone wants an answer. What's the ethical alternative to Spotify? The one I often provide is, unfortunately, unsatisfying to many because it is not simple. There's not one single answer. It's certainly not merely to download Apple or Amazon Music or some other app that allows you to pay $10 every month for all the music in the world. Rather than seek out another fix-all app, we should be honest with ourselves about the reality that this very model fails to meet the needs of most independent artists and listeners, and grapple with the complexity of that. Emphasizing individual habits in general can feel weak in the face of so much consolidation and financialization, and a musical surveillance apparatus with insidious influence on the world around us whether we participate in it or not. Collective issues require collective solutions. You all probably know me though. If I can make a change individually, then I will. And I honestly always encourage others to do so as well. Obviously, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music are out of the picture, so that leaves us with very limited options. I know a lot of people recommend Tidal due to their high payout per stream, but I personally couldn't use it. The app downloads on iOS were massive and downloaded as MP4 video files, which was incredibly annoying. I literally downloaded half of my music library, which is like 1,000 songs. It's not anything crazy, all right? And it was 50 gigabytes of space on my phone. I also tried SoundCloud, but the app was literally unusable on iOS, so I continued my search. There's platforms like Bandcamp that people use, and even more niche ones like Cubase, but I did not invest in any of these. What I ended up switching to was an app called Deezer after one of you recommended it to me on Instagram. I have to be honest, it's not nearly as smooth as Spotify or as organized, but it's worth it to me personally. It's a much smaller service, so there's not as big of an issue that there would be like if you were giving your money to something like Amazon or Apple. I didn't have an issue transferring all my music over, and there were only 2 songs that weren't available on Deezer. I am not here to suck off this platform, but they have been receiving a lot of attention lately for being one of the only streaming services to add an AI label to AI songs and to completely remove these songs from recommendation systems. Essentially, the only way you can find these songs is by looking them up, if you wanted to do that for some reason. The CEO did an interview with Anthony Fantano, which is where I got a lot of my information from for this. Apparently, Deezer pays artists based on how much each user listens to them, which is in contrast to Spotify's pro rata model. The CEO says that despite Deezer having a low per stream rate, it's not as simple as that, as Deezer also gives artists boosts for their songs that have been searched for. In the end though, streaming is an inherently broken practice. There is no platform that will save artists. There's just Spotify and then the less bad Spotify. Liz Pelly, in the conclusion to her book, references a different kind of streaming platform called Catalytic Sound. Catalytic is an artist-owned streaming service that provides exclusive music from the improvisational artists that they partner with. They say on their website that half of the album sales and subscription fees go directly to the artist. Pelly writes about them. Perhaps the most compelling dimension of Catalytic Sound is that it is distinctly not a technological solution, but a social and economic one. It suggests that instead of thinking a revamped technology will fix the problems facing music, what needs to be reconsidered is the structure of power and money that surrounds said music. A big change won't be made unless huge swaths of people stop using these platforms, which is extremely unlikely to happen, I gotta be honest. While I do preach for individual choices, and I will continue to make them and advocate for them, because I believe they are tremendously important, when it comes to these huge companies and entire industries, a massive amount of people would be needed to make a significant dent in their subscription revenues. And unless their money is taken away from them, they're not going to change for the betterment of society. I don't ever plan on going back to Spotify. While all streaming is shitty in some way, Spotify is shitty in a liquid diarrhea way, an explosive liquid diarrhea way. I do feel a lot better not giving my money to them or to Amazon or Apple or Google, and I encourage you to do the same. But we need to make changes in other ways too for our migration to really count. Whatever you do though, don't leave YouTube. I need money, okay? Well, that's it for me, and that's it for this video. I'd be especially interested in hearing from you if you are an independent artist or any artist of any kind. Have you switched from Spotify? Do you plan on switching from Spotify? What do you think of this video? Just comment down below. Anything you want to comment down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you like me, you can subscribe. I post videos about whatever I feel like talking about. So if that sounds like your thing, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you know when I upload a video. You're not going to know unless you turn on the notification bell. I'd like to give a shout out to my Patreon members who are part of my Alpha and Delta tiers. Thank you so much to Emberlyn McCooley, Dallas Andrade, and Lisbeth Ruiz. I really appreciate your continued support. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of my patrons. If you'd like to become a Patreon member, the link will be down below. Anyway, I really hope you all enjoyed this video, but more importantly than that, I really hope I see you in the next video. I need to think of something new to say at the end of all my videos. It's getting old. All right, but you're going to be there, right? Watching the video. Hopefully, right? You will, right? Bye.